Your stomach is a knot of iron, but your hands must not tremble. To the world outside this room, you are a hero, choosing a noble end. But inside, you are simply a man whose bowels are turning to water at the sight of a 9-inch blade wrapped in rice paper. You aren't dying for your lord. You are dying so your son doesn't have to grow up as a landless beggar in a world that has already moved on from your kind. The smell of ozone and wet iron is the first thing that returns to you. It is the morning of October 21st, 1600, and the fog over the valley of Sekigahara is so thick it feels like a physical weight against your chest. Your lungs burn with the sharp, metallic air of a battlefield where 30,000 men have already ceased to breathe. You are kneeling in the black, churned-up mud of a hillside, your fingers clawing into the earth as the realization of the catastrophe washes over you like freezing water. To your left, the banners of the Western Army, the symbols you swore your life to protect, are being trampled into the filth by charging cavalry. To your right, the man who was your commander 10 minutes ago is now a headless torso slumped over a shattered drum. The sound is what truly breaks the veil. It is not the heroic clash of steel you were promised in the dojo. It is a wet, grinding cacophagous of screams, the rhythmic thud of horses' hooves on soft earth, and the distant, thunderous crack of arquebus fire that signals the end of an era. You look down at your hands. They are stained with a mixture of dark soil and the bright, oxygenated red of a comrade who fell across your lap. The POV of the victor is one of glory and land, but your reality is the sudden, terrifying vacuum of the defeated. You are alive in a moment where life has become a liability. In the distance, you see the eastern banners of Tokugawa Ieyasu cresting the ridge. They aren't just coming for your head, they are coming for your legacy, your lands, and the very memory of your ancestors. This is the start of the ticking clock. Every breath you take in this mud is a debt you cannot pay. The logic of the samurai code, the bushido, begins to tighten around your throat like a silk cord. You could run, you could vanish into the mountains and live the life of a ronin, a masterless ghost. But as you look at the family crest stitched into your sleeve, you feel the crushing weight of 300 years of expectation. If you die here, in the mud, like an animal, your family name dies with you. Your wife will be cast out, and your son will be a nameless beggar. The only way to save them is to stop being a soldier and start being a sacrifice. You reach for your wakizashi, not to fight the oncoming tide, but to begin the process of reclaiming the only thing they cannot take from you, the right to end yourself on your own terms. The transition from the screaming chaos of the battlefield to the temple's inner sanctum is a sensory shock more violent than any blade. The air here is not thick with the smell of gunpowder and bowels. It is unnervingly clean, carrying the sharp, medicinal scent of fresh tatami and the heavy, sweet perfume of incense designed to mask the odor of impending death. You are no longer surrounded by 30,000 men. You are alone in a space so quiet you can hear the blood drumming in your own ears. The ticking clock has shifted from the frantic pulse of combat to the slow, deliberate rhythm of ritual. Every movement by the attendants is performed with a terrifying, glacial precision, as if they are handling a ghost that hasn't quite realized it is dead yet. The weight of the name, your family name, now settles on you with more force than your steel breastplate ever did. This is the psychological heart of the veil of reality. In the flickering candlelight, you aren't just one man. You are the current vessel for 10 generations of ancestors whose eyes seem to burn from the shadows of the room. Your mind flashes back to your home, to the sight of your young son practicing his wooden sword in the courtyard. If you had chosen the coward's path and fled the mud of Sekigahara, the Tokugawa's men would have arrived at your gates by dawn. Your lands would be confiscated, your lineage erased, and your family reduced to the status of untouchables. By sitting on this mat, you are signing a contract in blood to purchase their survival. The honor the history books speak of is, in this room, a brutal form of currency. As the attendants bring in the white shini shozoku robes, the finality of the situation closes in. To wear these clothes is to declare yourself legally and spiritually deceased. You watch your own hands as you change, noticing the small tremors you can't quite suppress. You are being prepared like a piece of sacred art, every fold of the silk checked for perfection. The social pressure is a suffocating atmosphere. The monks and the witnesses watching from the periphery aren't looking for a man. They are looking for a performance. They are waiting to see if the veil will break, if you will scream or plead, or if you will maintain the mask of the samurai until the very end. You realize that the most difficult part of the ritual isn't the steel, it is the silence you are required to maintain while your entire soul is screaming to live. The white silk of the Shini Shozoku is surprisingly cold against your skin, a stark, clinical contrast to the feverish heat of your own anxiety. You are now seated in the center of the room, a singular point of focus for the witnesses who sit like statues in the dim light. This is the stage of the final preparation, where the abstract threat of death becomes a tangible, physical reality. In front of you, on a small cedar stand called a sanbo, lies the tanto. It is wrapped in clean rice paper so that only the last few inches of the steel are exposed, a practical measure to ensure your grip does not slip when your hands inevitably become wet with your own life. The sensory details in this moment are hyper-focused, a phenomenon you recognize from the heat of battle, but here the veil of reality is stripped back by silence rather than noise. You notice the way the light catches the grain of the wooden stand, the slight hiss of the incense as it burns down, and the steady, rhythmic breathing of the kaishakunin standing behind you. He is your second, a man you have fought alongside for years, but today his role is that of a butcher of mercy. You can feel his presence like a shadow, his heavy katana already unsheathed and held at the ready. He is the guardian of your dignity, the one who will ensure that if your physical resolve fails, your social honor remains intact. Your mind is a battlefield of its own. Part of you, the animal part, is cataloging every possible escape route, every door and window, calculating the distance to the edge of the temple grounds. But the weight of the social pressure is a physical anchor. To move, to bolt, to even flinch would be to condemn your entire bloodline to a fate worse than your own death. You are trapped between two different kinds of extinction, the end of your body or the end of your name. You reach out, your fingers hovering just millimeters above the rice paper wrapped hilt. The steel is indifferent to your history, your fears, or your love for your family. It is merely a tool, waiting for you to provide the force. As your skin finally makes contact with the hilt, the ticking clock reaches its final second. There is no more time for thought, only for the mechanical execution of the code you have lived by since you were a child. The finality of the moment arrives not with a bang, but with a terrifying absolute clarity. As the cold steel of the tanto finally makes its entry, the world of veil of reality shifts from the psychological to the purely biological. The pain is an all-consuming white light, a sensory overload that threatens to tear the mask of the samurai from your face. But even as your nerves scream, the crushing weight of the social pressure remains. You are performing for an audience of ancestors and enemies alike, and every second you remain upright and silent is a second where you reclaim your family's future from the wreckage of the Battle of Sekigahara. Your vision begins to tunnel, the edges of the room blurring into a haze of gray and gold. You feel the slight displacement of air, a silent, rushing wind, as the kaishakunin brings his katana down in a perfect, merciful arc. There is a singular moment of weightlessness, a transition point where the veil between the physical agony and the void finally dissolves. The silence of the temple room rushes back in, but you are no longer there to hear it. You have transitioned from a man into a monument, a sacrifice to a code that values the continuity of a name over the breath of an individual. The screen fades to a deep, resonant black, leaving the audience with the haunting residue of the ritual. The final question isn't whether you were brave, but whether the cost was worth the coin. Was this true honor, a noble preservation of a lineage against the tide of a changing Japan? Or was it the ultimate tragedy of a human life consumed by an unyielding social machine? As the credits roll, the viewers are left to grapple with the cold reality of the samurai, a world where the most important thing you ever did was the very last thing you ever did.